Outrage as family buries students of Federal University FUOYE. Nigerians call for identification, prosecution of officers who shot students. Nigerian Labour Congress, Nigeria Employers Consultative Association rejects VAT increase. Senate to summon Finance Minister, FIRS chairman. In international news, did Boris Johnson lie to the Queen over suspension of Parliament? And later, sports. Nigeria Football Federation reinstates Salisu Yusuf after 1 year ban.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. The killings of some protesting students by the Federal University FUOYE Ekiti State, allegedly by some officers of the Nigeria Police attached to the wife of Ekiti State's Governor Adebisi Fayemi, has sparked some outrage from Nigerians. The university students and family members gathered on Thursday to bury one of the slain students, Oluwaseyi Kehinde, in Idosi, Ekiti State. The victim was one of the two students allegedly shot dead by policemen attached to the Ekiti State Police Command during a demonstration over power outage in Oye and Ikole Ekiti campuses of the institution. Kehinde and Joseph Okonufwa were allegedly gunned down by the policemen, while others who sustained injuries are currently in the hospital. Police Public Relations Officer in the state, DSP Caleb Ikechukwu, denies the police shot at any student. He claims the students attacked Fayemi's convoy. Meanwhile, a 15-second footage trending on social media shows policemen chasing some of the students and shooting straight at them. As Kehinde was buried, Nigerians took to social media to demand their identities and prosecution of the killer corps. The Nigerian government is demanding compensation for Nigerians affected by xenophobic attacks in South Africa. Chairman of Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, Abike Dabire-Rewa, says the federal government is pressing for compensation for victims. Dabire-Rewa reviewed this at the Maiden Diaspora lecture titled Role of Africans in Diaspora in the Transformation of a University of Technology. She says the federal government is working to ensure justice is served and bring perpetrators to book. Dabire-Rewa also enjoined all state governments to create a diaspora desk, saying Nigeria has the biggest diaspora potentials in Africa and the third in the world. The Nigerian Labour Congress and the Nigerian Employers Consultative Association have rejected the federal government's proposed increase in value-added tax from 5% to 7.2%. Nigerian Labour Congress says the proposed VAT increase would erode any financial benefits the minimum wage increase would bring to workers and Nigerians. Both unions have described the VAT increase as insensitive to the plight of the ordinary Nigerian. NLC General Secretary Comrade Emmanuel Ubuaja has advised the federal government to widen the tax net and get people to pay their taxes rather than overtax those that are in the net already. Meanwhile, the Senate Committee on Finance says it will invite the Minister of Finance and the Chairman, Federal Inland Revenue Service, to give details on reasons for the proposed increase in the value-added tax. Committee Chairman Solomon Adiola says the invitation would focus on the proposed plan to increase VAT. Senator Adiola says this plan has generated mixed reactions among the public on its possible effect on living standards and the economy. The chairman said the interaction with the two key federal government officials would form part of the basis for possible amendment of the VAT. 19 northern state governors on the platform of the Northern Governors Forum have settled for the federal government's National Livestock Transformation Plan. The NGF also urged other governors in other parts of the country to follow suit. Plateau State Governor, who is also chairman of the group, says The National Livestock Transformation Plan would ensure peace and stability in the region, as well as resettle dislocated populations in the key conflict zones to enable them become part of the agricultural modernization process. The forum adopted the program, which lays out a clear path for modernizing pastoral activities. Langlong says the plan will further encourage other states not included as pilot states to endeavor to join the plan. The indigenous people of Biafra and the Islamic movement of Nigeria have finally got a hearing date for appeals challenging their proscriptions by an order of the Federal High Court in Abuja issued almost 2 years ago. Court of Appeal has fixed October the 21st for the hearing of the appeal by IPOB, while Islamic movement in Nigeria got an October the 28th date for the hearing of its application, challenging the proscription order. The then Chief Justice of the Federal High Court, retired Justice Adamu Abdulkafarati, has prescribed both groups and labeled them terrorists, following an ex parte application by the Attorney General of the Federation and the Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, who accused the group of conducting themselves violently in their agitation for creation of Republic of Biafra. IMN, through its lawyer, Femi Falana, says the court lacked the jurisdiction to issue the ex parte order against a non-juristic body like the IMN, which was not an incorporated entity. Falana also alleged that the order breached the fundamental right of all its members to fair hearing, guaranteed by Section 36 of the Nigerian Constitution.
Coming up, African stories. Jailed Tunisian presidential candidate begins hunger strike. And later, international news. Prime Minister Boris Johnson denies telling lies to the Queen over suspension of Parliament.
You are watching ANN.
This used to be me. But that was before I got the perfect bag. It's handy and easy to use. All I need in one compact space, just like my MTN Extra Value plan. I used to get one plan for my calls and then try to remember which data plan worked for me. Roaming was a totally different ballgame. Not anymore. I've got the MTN Extra Value all-in-one plan. If you're a data buff like me, you get extra data with some talk time. And if you like to make calls, you get extra talk time with some data. And when I'm abroad, I automatically browse, chat, and call right on the same plan. MTN Extra Value was made just for me.
More of data or calls, whichever one you prefer. MTN Extra Value is made just for you.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Now to African stories. A Tunisian presidential candidate, Nabil Karoui, has begun a hunger strike. Karoui was jailed late last month, pending an investigation into alleged money laundering and tax evasion charges. Karoui's lawyer says the hunger strike is for his clients to defend his rights to take part in Sunday's election. Polls show that Karoui is among the favorites in the first round vote slated for Sunday in the presidential elections in the North African nation. Supporters say jailing Karoui is a political move aimed at ruining his chances among the 26 candidates on the ballot. Tunisian authorities say they have nothing to do with Karoui's situation. They claim it is an independent judicial decision. The country's electoral commission has cleared Karoui to remain in the race as long as he is not convicted before Sunday. Foreigners will no longer be able to adopt Kenyan children. The cabinet has put an immediate lid on the adoption of Kenyan children by foreign nationals. A special cabinet meeting at the State House in Nairobi also issued a directive to the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection to come up with a new policy document to regulate the adoption of Kenyan children by foreign nationals. The special meeting was chaired by President Uhuru Kenyatta. Also in attendance was Deputy President William Ruto. The cabinet also approved an infrastructure fund of 7 billion Kenyan shillings, roughly 68 million US dollars, for an inland container depot, railway marshalling yard, logistics zone, and public utility area. Part of the fund would also be used for other core enabling infrastructure to support the development of the Navacha Special Economic Zone and the impending completion of the second phase of the standard gauge railway. A few days ago, Ethiopia celebrated the National Pride Day in the capital, Addis Ababa. Ethiopian history, culture, and patriotism were featured. State broadcaster Fana Broadcasting Corporation says as many as 250,000 residents and invited guests participated in the event. Reporter Girob Chala was there.
The Addis Ababa event was attended by at least 1 million residents, the army, police and special force with an eye-catching parade. City residents say the National Pride Day celebration has a lot of meaning to them.
This is an exciting moment for me and all of us here. It even made me shed tears of joy. This Ethiopian feeling is beyond words. May Almighty bless Ethiopia for eternity.
All nationalities are present here. Our plan before we came here was to meet, greet and laugh with our fellow nationals. We will always be proud of our Ethiopia.
This National Pride Day is part of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's initiatives intended to celebrate the special 13th month of Ethiopia with 6 days in it this year, with several activities dedicated to each day.
We are just the nation telling the world that we are not only the 12 months, we have extra months. So in this extra month, the 6th day, we are celebrating events across the region, across the city. So this program is hosted by the Prime Minister. The idea is from Prime Minister, then the city is hosting this National Pride Day. I think it's everything for us.
Mayor Takala Uma is also adamant that the continuous celebration of the National Pride Day will guarantee nationwide unity for growth.
Our grandfather had done an amazing job. They won the Battle of Adwa. They created Aksum. They established the Geda system for us. Now, we want to narrate that, and of course, for the future, to bring people together, the city's residents together, and to bring hope and give people the commitment that this nation is the nation, the greatest nation we want to create in Africa, in the Horn of Africa.
To sustain law and order, the fast-growing economy, and above and beyond for the overall peace of the country, Ethiopia needs the unity of its people now more than any other time in its recent past. Analysts, however, say Ethiopia needs to also focus more on freeing people from the bonds of poverty for a much better countrywide result.
Bad news to share. Thami Shobede, Idols South Africa Season 12 runner-up, has died. His fans simply called him Thama on the program. Shobede died at a Pretoria hospital after collapsing on stage while performing over the weekend. He became famous in 2016 after participating in the South Africa Idols competition, where he emerged the runner-up to Noma Khumalo and went on to work on his solo music career. He released some hit songs, including Shuandwa, which he dedicated to his fans for their support. His album, Never Lost, featured at #1 on iTunes. Social media has been abuzz with condolences from his many fans.
When we return, international news. Boris Johnson denies telling lies to the Queen over suspension of Parliament. And later, sport. NFF reinstates Salisu Yusuf after alleged bribery ban.
You are watching ANN.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Now to international stories. Britain Prime Minister Boris Johnson has denied that he lied to Queen Elizabeth when presenting his case for suspending Parliament for 5 weeks as the Brexit deadline approaches. The suspension is now being challenged in the court, and reluctant judges are being drawn into the political fray. When asked if he had lied to the Queen when he asked her to prorogue the Parliament and whether the reasons he presented to her for wanting the suspension Parliament were misleading, Johnson said, absolutely not. He said the prorogation is not unusual or a bid to undermine democracy. Johnson's comments followed a Scottish court ruling that his government's advice to the Queen on the suspension was unlawful. The Scottish court ruling had rocked the already Brexit-torn political system. It has also set the stage for a legal showdown on Tuesday, when the country's Supreme Court will decide whether the Scottish ruling is correct. It could also decide that the two rulings from English and Northern Irish courts were correct. They had said the Prime Minister is correct on his suspension of the Parliament. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is fending off a report that Israel has set spying devices near the White House. It says it's a complete fabrication. Israel's Washington embassy spokesman Elad Stromeyer also said the report by Politico, a U.S. online news site, was not true. Stromeyer said Israel does not conduct espionage operations in the United States. Politico had reported on Thursday that the U.S. government believes Israel was probably responsible for planting eavesdropping devices found near the White House and other sensitive locations in Washington. Some former U.S. senior national security officials were said to have told Politico that analysis of the devices by the FBI and other U.S. agencies linked them to Israeli agents. And U.S. House Democrats have voted to continue with possible impeachment proceedings by setting rules to explore an inquiry into President Donald Trump. The Judiciary Committee action was basically a symbolic display and a practical exercise of constitutional powers. Voting along party lines, the lawmakers were demonstrating to judges and impatient Democrats that they are building a case. But they have not yet broached the more politically loaded action of actually filing impeachment charges. With fewer than 40 legislative days left this year, House Democrats are divided over whether the multiple investigations already being carried out on the president could pass for an impeachment inquiry. Various legislative committees are looking into a number of issues relating to the president, including his failure to release his tax returns, his payment of hush money in the case of porn star Stormy Daniels to stop publication of damaging stories, and the spending of taxpayers' money on the president's hotels and properties. Just like the U.S. trade issues with China, South Korea also has one with Japan, even though it is not as talked about like the one between the world's two giants. South Korean firms are seeking new opportunities with Japan, trade row or not.
This factory produces ball bearings and other precision components used in industrial machinery and robots. But so far business has been difficult trying to compete with products from Japan. Customers have been inclined to source more high-quality, yet expensive Japanese imports. But ever since Japan removed South Korea from its so-called trade whitelist of preferred nations, business has been on the rise.
In the past, customers were very picky and demanded higher quality on par with Japanese products and lower costs. That made it extremely difficult to supply our clients. Thankfully, we now have the opportunity to enter the market with an alternative product.
The South Korean government is doing all it can to help local businesses. President Moon Jae-in has come out strongly against Japan for its export restrictions. His administration retaliating by removing Japan from its own trading whitelist. South Korea's semiconductor industry was the first victim in this latest trade dispute with Japan. Experts say companies and industries will inevitably adapt and adjust, but not without any negative impact on South Korea's economy.
In the long term, we expect the damage to be less because the longer the time frame, the more time Koreans have to find replacements or develop its own domestic sources for these components. But the short term, if Japan does decide to really control the exports of these items and restrict exports to Korea, the short term damage will probably be as estimated somewhere between 2 to 5% of the GDP at worst.
This company was the first in South Korea to develop harmonic decelerator technology for robotic use. Finding meaningful buyers for their products has been a separate challenge. And amid a brewing trade dispute with Japan, it's a challenge they're willing to accept.
Up next, sports. NFF reinstates Salisu Yusuf after a year ban. Please stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
Whether in your house, at your office, on your phone or online, we are there. We have the facts behind the headlines. We cut to the chase with the news you really need. We cover every angle. We are the bigger, better news network. We are African News Network. ANN. Watch ANN News on MITV from a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News and Sport. The Nigeria Football Federation has reinstated Salisu Yusuf to the Nigeria team after serving a one-year ban for receiving bribe. Salisu was caught on camera accepting cash from men who posed as football agents to select 2 players for his Morocco 2018 African Nations Championship squad. He was ordered to pay a fine of $5,000 by the Federation after the NFF Ethics and Fair Play Committee wrote that the coach received $1,000 from the man. Rivers Angels, Bayelsa Queens, Confluence Queens and Adamawa Queens are the 4 teams qualified for the 2018-2019 Women Premier League Super 4 tournament. But there was controversy surrounding the outcome of the group. A tie between Rivers Angels, who were on 10 points, and Delta Queens 8 points before their final clash. That is ANN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on these and other breaking stories, visit our website, annafrica.news. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a great weekend.